Hello and welcome back to this channel's coverage of the tank loss patterns during the ongoing Russo-Ukrainian War. This episode is for July 2022. Starting off with Lost Armor's estimates for Ukraine's losses. These are 30 tanks in total, 3 of which are T-80s, 11 T-72s, and 16 T-64s. This will mean that it is the second month that features an increased proportion of T-72s, at least compared to the earlier months in the war. This could indicate an increased use of vehicles previously held in reserve, but it could also be units converting to using foreign-supplied tanks or captured Russian tanks. One of the reasons that I have put forward this as a potential is the fairly significant proportion of the T-72s that we are seeing, which are T-72Bs, which pre-war Ukraine had significantly less of than T-72As. At this point, we know that T-72Bs were being supplied, although not if they had reached the front lines yet, by Ukraine's foreign backers, and we also know they have captured a fairly good number of them from the Russians. Looking into a little bit more detail, we see that all 3 Ukrainian T-80 losses remain T-80BVs, so their modernization status will remain at 0 for that. The T-72s are 1 unknown, 3 AMTs, 2 AVs, 3 Bs, and 2 M1s. Unfortunately, the breakdown as far as modernization goes of Ukraine's T-72s continues to be very unstable, so unfortunately there's not a lot we can say with confidence there, at least as far as patterns go. Ukraine's T-64 losses were 11 BVs, 1 BM, and 4 B1Ms. This does mean that as far as Ukraine's most modern T-64s go, this has been the month with their highest prevalence so far, and the pattern of effectively alternating use months does seem to be continuing. And because of the predominance of Ukraine's T-64s in their tank fleet, that is also reflected in their overall modernization breakdown, which compared to last month we do see a significantly increased amount of level 1s and a moderate drop in level -1s. Though, as per usual, especially with the months in which casualties were lower, there is going to be a more significant issue with sample sizes. Moving over to Russian losses, which Warspotting estimates at 74 for this month, there were 22 T-80s, 49 T-72s, 1 T-64, and 2 T-62s. This will mean that it's the second month of elevated, at least slightly elevated, T-80 usage, and the prevalence of their non-standard tanks in the form of the T-64s and T-62s have dropped more to a level that I imagine is more reflective of their actual use, at least compared to the abnormally high month that was June of 2022. Of Russia's T-80 losses, 18 are BVs, 3 are BVMs, and 1 is a U. This will mean that that pattern of reduced level 1 proportions is definitely continuing. This could indicate that the more advanced of Russia's T-80s have at this point been fairly significantly attrited, at least compared to what they were when the war began. As for the T-72s, 1 is an unknown, 3 are As, 11 Bs, 3 B-1989s, 17 B3s, and 13 B3 2016s, and finally 1 T-72BA. Overall, this will mean that the proportion of more advanced T-72s in the Russian fleet seems to have been its highest during July, and we do see a return of that low number of -1s. The Russian T-64 losses are a single BV, and Russia's T-62 losses are 2 T-62Ms. Thus far, in both this month and the preceding month, all T-64s have been deemed to have been damaged, and this is a good example of why I include damaged tanks in my numbers. The primary focus of this analysis is the tank use patterns, at least its breakdown, by looking at what is being lost as its essential proxy, which means that it is important that I include tanks once we first start seeing evidence of them. If I only waited for destroyed tanks to be showing up in the data, there would be a several months difference in the first deployment of the T-62. And if you're wondering how someone was able to identify the lower picture as a T-62M, I'd imagine it is that additional add-on armor located on the turret face. That kind of plate is really only seen on T-62Ms and on some T-55 upgrades. Overall, for Russia's modernization status, we see that the trend has reversed, at least for July. That is, July saw a more modern tank fleet, at least a more modern tank fleet being destroyed, than June had, and almost the same level that May had been. So, in summary for this month, not really anything interesting happened with the data. Both sides still have their reduced loss rates compared to the first few months of the war and the increased months that are coming, so I can't draw any particularly strong conclusions off of what we've seen here. But I hope, even given the brevity of this episode, you were still able to find at least something interesting, or at the very least curious. And I hope to see you all again next time. Bye-bye.